Temperatures are heating up, corn markets are trending down, and so are dairy methane emissions.
This week, Secretary Rollins prioritizes deportation in America's food supply. California dairy digesters are slashing emissions. Corn prices are down, leaving unfulfilled contracts, and FDA-approved lab-grown salmon may be hitting a meat counter near you.
Also hitting the grocery stores are dill pickle flavored cup noodles. It's kind of like pickles and ramen had a baby. That was funnier in my head. Maybe we should get started with this episode. I'm Braden.
And I'm Savannah.
Welcome to Magnetic Ag Ears Edition.
Every week, we break down the top headlines and trends facing food and agriculture.
Fast, fun, and actually useful. Let's get it. Big moves in California's methane strategy this week as a new study out of UC Riverside confirms that dairy digesters, those giant tarps stretched over manure lagoons, are slashing emissions by as much as 80%.
And that number is more than just a headline. It's the first real-world, peer-reviewed confirmation that these systems actually work. The finding comes from a 2-year study at a commercial dairy in Tulare County, where researchers tracked methane emissions before and after the farm installed a covered lagoon digester system in 2021.
It's no surprise that this research was done in Tulare County, California. That region alone produces more milk than anywhere else in the country. And in this research, scientists tracked emissions for a full year before and after the digester was installed in 2021. And the data is telling a clear story.
Early on, they detected some methane leaks, but rather than writing off the project, the team worked directly with the operator, California Bioenergy, to fix the issue. Once those adjustments were made, methane levels dropped significantly.
The report calls it a, quote, textbook case of adaptive management. It's also one of the first peer-reviewed studies to validate what California policymakers have long hoped, that digesters can help the state meet its aggressive climate goals, specifically a 40% reduction in methane emissions below 2013's levels by 2030.
For some additional context, methane is 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide when it comes to trapping heat in the atmosphere over a 20-year period. In California, a large chunk of methane emission comes from dairy operations, not just from cows themselves, but from the way their manure is stored.
And that's where these digesters come in. By sealing manure ponds with a gas-tight membrane, farms can trap the methane, clean it, and often repurpose it as a renewable natural gas, fueling trucks or even going back into the energy grid.
But while these numbers are impressive, the study also outlines some key limiters. Digesters don't reduce ammonia or the fine particulate pollution, both of which still impact local air quality. Plus, these systems require complex permitting, major capital investment, and long-term maintenance. Not every farm can take that on.
Still, for operations that make it work, the payoff could be substantial, both environmentally and economically. As of now, more than 130 digesters are already in operation on California dairies. In the big picture, this study could shape how funding, tech adoption, and policy evolve for the state's 1,200 plus dairies, especially as California works towards its aggressive 2030 climate goals.
After months of volatility, corn farmers are asking, can we count on a summer rally, or will we be left husking disappointment?
According to Ag Marketing IQ's JJ Kesk, waiting for that midsummer uptick might just paralyze your sales strategy. Historically, December corn futures hit their yearly high in May or June in 6 of the last 10 years. But that's not the case in 2025. This year's top was in February at $4.79. The April rally stalled at $4.69. May peaked even lower at $4.56. And June has only ticked up to about $4.50.
So here's the issue. Funds are betting against a rally, standing net short 154,000 contracts at a time of a year that is usually goes long. Combine that with USDA projecting huge acreage and a fading drought, and the odds are really stacked up against the summer run.
And as usual, weather remains a big wild card. Corn conditions have improved through mid-June, but variable pollination windows from 2 weeks to 5 weeks, depending on planting and temperatures, mean much still hinges on how Mother Nature behaves in July.
Digging into the investment side a bit more, the USDA warns global corn stock tightness continues. World inventory is at 18.7% stock to use ratio, a key metric to track. Funds are bearish on corn, even though they are bullish on cattle and hogs. CBOT corn spreads are exhibiting unusual patterns. July contracts are cheaper than December, hitting at either excess old crops or a mispricing.
In other news, we're talking about a move that has stirred up both relief and controversy. The Department of Homeland Security has reportedly eased its approach to immigration enforcement on farms and in hospitality, giving a temporary break to industries that heavily depend on undocumented labor. This shift comes after backlash from ag leaders and lawmakers in response to recent workplace raids and detentions by Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins isn't pulling any punches, though. While acknowledging the update, she made it clear she still stands firmly with President Donald Trump's border immigration agenda. In a statement she wrote on X, Rollins said, quote, "Severe disruptions in our food supply would harm Americans. It took us decades to get into this mess, and we are prioritizing deportations in a way that will get us out."
The quote unquote mess she's referring to, what she calls a quote broken farm labor economy. Her message: deportations will continue, just not at the expense of the American food supply.
Still, the policy shift forward signifies criticism from the ag community. House Agriculture Committee Chair Glenn Thompson minced no words when addressing what he saw as a heavy-handed enforcement tactics. He said, quote, "To come in here with guns blazing and what you're taking out are hard-working dairymen, it's just wrong."
So, what does this really all mean? For now, farms can breathe a small sigh of relief. The labor that keeps America fed, milking cows, picking produce, processing food, isn't being targeted as aggressively, at least for the short term. Savannah, we all know you prefer your protein to come from land, and I'm always down for anything from the ocean. But what if I told you we could do both with a single protein? This week, the FDA has officially greenlit the first ever lab grown salmon for U.S. consumers.
The approval goes to San Francisco based startup Wildtype, which will now serve its cultivated salmon at a fine dining restaurant in Portland, Oregon. And yes, we're talking real fish, but without the fishing.
How does it work? Wild type starts with cells from Pacific salmon. Those cells are grown in stainless steel tanks, harvested, and then blended with plant based ingredients to replicate the taste, texture, and look of conventional fillets, right down to the marbling.
The FDA issued a no questions letter this week confirming the product is as safe as traditional seafood. The pre market safety assessment clears a major regulatory hurdle and marks a milestone in the cultivated seafood industry.
Wildtype becomes just the fourth cultivated protein company to get FDA approval in the US, but the first to do so with a fish product. It's a sign of growing momentum in the cell based meat and seafood space, but also one that comes with significant pushback.
State level bans are already in effect. Nebraska, Mississippi, Florida, and Alabama have outlawed the sale of cultivated meats. Several other states are currently weighing restrictions.
Opponents argue lab grown meat threatens traditional producers, but Wildtype and others see it differently. They say it's not about replacing ag, it's about meeting rising global demand for protein without overwhelming land and water resources.
And there's consumer interest to back it up. According to the Food Institute, up to 15% of Americans now identify as flexitarians, meaning they're looking to cut back on meat or cut it out entirely.
That demand could be critical for an industry still struggling to scale. Despite high interest, cultivated meat and seafood haven't yet made it to retail stores, and fundraising has significantly cooled in recent years.
Still, partnerships could help. Major players like Cargill, Tyson, and JBS are already investing in the space. JBS is even building its own cultivated meat facility in Brazil.
As for Wildtype, they're planning to expand to 4 more restaurants within the next 4 months and are actively seeking new food service partners to boost visibility and consumer buy in.
But it's not just about the market. Wildtype is getting political. The company's founders testified against Florida's 2024 cultivated meat ban and continued to advocate for federal oversight to keep innovation alive.
In a statement, Wildtype said the mission is bigger than novelty. It's about addressing what they call, quote, the fundamental challenge of our time, sustaining global health without dooming our planet.
And while it's still early, the FDA's approval could be the momentum that tips the scale for what the future of seafood actually looks like.
From one bold food line to another, cup noodles just went briny. Starting June 21st, the iconic instant ramen brand is releasing a limited edition dill pickle flavor, adding a tangy twist to its classic 5-minute noodle cups.
It's a flavor move that feels, well, kind of inevitable. Pickle forward foods are everywhere, from martinis to popsicles. And now, thanks to Nissan Foods, they're headed to your ramen bowl.
The flavor combines that sharp vinegar forward snap of dill pickles with the savory base cup noodles is known for. And yes, it's meant to be eaten straight from the cup, or if you're really going for it, paired with an actual pickle spear on the side.
And this isn't just a stunt. According to Pinterest's 2025 trend report, the so called pickle fix is very real. Searches for pickle centric recipes like pickle salad, pickle tacos, and pickle martinis have spiked. And TikTok's hashtag pickle have already cleared 321 million views.
And it's not just pickles. The rise of fermented and sour flavor profiles is redefining what customers, especially Gen Z and younger millennials, are craving. From kimchi butter and kochi marinades to sour beers and vinegary shrubs, Tang is trending across the board.
Nissan Foods says the dill pickle launch is all about meeting the movement. Priscilla Stanton, Senior Vice President of Marketing, says, quote, "We wanted to lean into something bold and unexpected that still felt familiar."
You'll be able to find it online and in stores nationwide, including Walmart, Albertsons, and other major retailers, for a limited time only, of course. And considering past flavor drops from the brand, like s'mores and breakfast noodles, expect this one to get snapped up fast.
So, whether you're a diehard pickle fan or just Brian Curious, Cup Noodles Dill Pickle is the latest and possibly strangest entry into a year that's been full of flavor extremes. Tang is in, comfort is out, and your pantry is about to get weird.
Savannah, all this food talk is making me hungry. What does a guy got to do to get some dill pickle salmon around here?
I don't know about that one, but I do know that our time is up. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Magnetic Ag Ears Edition.
Hungry for more?
Subscribe to our twice weekly newsletter for more industry news right in your inbox.
Or follow along on socials at magnetic.ag for more trends and headlines.
Thanks for listening to Magnetic Ag Ears Edition.